In February 1959, 9 experienced hikers vanished into the frozen wilderness of the northern Ural Mountains in Soviet Russia. What happened to them at a place now known as Dyatlov Pass remains one of the most chilling and debated mysteries in modern history. The group was led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, a skilled engineering student and an experienced trek leader. He and his team were all trained hikers, many of them students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute. They were attempting a difficult winter expedition across Kolatsyako, a mountain whose name in the language of the local Mansi people is often translated as Dead Mountain. There were originally 10 members in the group, but one hiker, Yuri Yudin, turned back early because of illness. That decision likely saved his life. The remaining 9 continued onward into increasingly harsh conditions. The hikers were expected to send a telegram when they returned to civilization, but no message came. At first, the delay didn't seem alarming. Experienced expeditions often ran behind schedule. But as more days passed, concern grew. On February 20th, rescue teams were sent out to search for them. What they found was deeply disturbing. The team's tent was discovered on the slope of Kolatsyako, partially buried in snow. It had not collapsed completely, but what stood out immediately was this: the tent had been cut open from the inside. That detail changed everything. It suggested that the hikers had not calmly exited the tent through the entrance. Instead, something had caused them to slash their way out and flee into the freezing darkness in extreme haste. Their boots, coats, and many of their essential supplies were left behind. Outside the tent, investigators found footprints leading downhill toward a nearby forest. The tracks appeared to show that some of the hikers had walked, not run, and many were either barefoot or wearing only socks. In temperatures that may have dropped below -25°C, leaving shelter without proper clothing would have been a death sentence. At the edge of the forest, under a large cedar tree, the first 2 bodies were found. They were Yuri Krivonishenko and Yuri Doroshenko. Both were barefoot and dressed only in underwear. Their hands were burned, suggesting they had tried to warm themselves by a fire. The branches of the cedar tree were broken high above the ground, as if someone had climbed it, perhaps trying to spot the tent or something approaching through the dark. Between the tree and the tent, rescuers found 3 more bodies: Igor Dyatlov, Zaneta Komugorova, and Rustem Slobodin. It looked as though they had been trying to return to the tent when they collapsed in the snow. At this point, it seemed possible that the group had panicked for some unknown reason, fled the tent, and died from exposure. But the final 4 bodies made the case far more mysterious. Months later, after the snow began to melt, the remaining hikers were found in a ravine deeper in the forest. Unlike the first 5, some of them were wearing pieces of clothing that appeared to have been taken from the dead. That suggested the survivors had tried to share warmth and stay alive for as long as possible. But their injuries were shocking. Ludmila Dubinina and Semyon Zolotaryov had massive chest fractures. Nikolay Thibault-Brignol suffered severe skull damage. Yet investigators noted that the injuries showed little external trauma, almost as if they had been caused by an immense pressure comparable to a car crash. Then came one of the most unsettling details of all. Ludmila Dubinina was missing her tongue, as well as parts of her lips and soft tissue from her face. Her eyes were also absent. Another victim was missing eyes as well. Some have argued that these injuries could have resulted from natural decomposition and scavenging animals. But in the context of the other strange findings, they only deepened the horror. There was more. Some articles of clothing tested positive for elevated levels of radiation. Witnesses in the region had also reported seeing strange glowing orange spheres in the sky around the time of the incident. This led to speculation about military experiments, secret weapons testing, or even something not entirely human. The Soviet investigation concluded with a vague and haunting statement. It said the hikers had died because of a compelling natural force. No further explanation was given. The case was closed, and for decades, many of the official records remained buried in secrecy. This only fueled theories. Over the years, countless explanations have been proposed. An avalanche is one of the most widely accepted theories today. In this scenario, the hikers may have feared the tent would be buried, cut their way out, and move downhill to safety. But critics point out that there was little clear evidence of a major avalanche at the site, and some details still don't fit. Other theories include katabatic winds, which are sudden, violent downhill gusts that can create terrifying conditions. Some believe the group may have been affected by infrasound, low-frequency sound waves capable of triggering panic and disorientation. Then there are the darker theories. Secret Soviet military testing, parachute mines, a violent encounter with other people, a Yeti attack, UFOs, government cover-ups. And perhaps that is why the Dyatlov Pass Incident continues to haunt people all over the world. Because no matter which theory you choose, one question remains terrifyingly unanswered. What made 9 trained hikers abandon their shelter, leave behind their boots and coats, and walk into a freezing mountain night? More than 60 years later, the snow has long since covered their final footprints. But the mystery never disappeared. It is still there, buried in the silence of Dead Mountain.